From my seat in the grand hall, I watched another class of graduates walk across the stage to begin their lives of service. Their expressions revealed everything: anxious smiles, nervous glances, and quiet determination. As they stood before the academy staff, honored guests, and senior members of the sisterhood, I couldn't help but remember my own initiation all those years ago. Although decades had passed, the ceremony itself remained almost unchanged. Watching them brought back memories of the frightened 13-year-old boy I had once been, a boy with no real direction, little hope for the future, and no understanding of the life that had already been chosen for him. I hadn't volunteered. Neither had my mother. One ordinary afternoon, I was called into the headmistress's office. She wasted no time with pleasantries. "You have been selected," she said, "to devote your life to the sisterhood." That was the entire conversation. There were no questions, no choices, no opportunity to refuse. Until that moment, I'd heard only whispers about boys who disappeared after being chosen. Some said they entered special academies. Others claimed they were never seen again. No one seemed to know the truth. Now I was one of them. I had never known my father, and my mother struggled to provide for us. Though she wasn't present that day, she'd already given her consent. The sisterhood would compensate her financially if I completed my training. I never saw her again. Whether she was still alive, I would never know. From that day forward, my future depended entirely on surviving 3 demanding years as a novice. The journey to the academy began immediately. A woman dressed in a crisp blue uniform, the unmistakable color of a sisterhood officer, escorted me to a waiting car. She spoke only when necessary, and I quickly understood that conversation wasn't expected. The drive lasted several hours. The familiar countryside slowly disappeared behind us, replaced by landscapes I'd never seen before. I spent the journey staring through the window, wondering if the rumors I'd heard contained even a grain of truth. Eventually, the car turned through ornate iron gates and followed a long driveway toward an impressive country estate hidden among tall trees. This, apparently, would become my new home. As soon as we entered the building, another woman in the same blue uniform greeted us. "You must be one of our new recruits," she said confidently. "I'm Miss Ross, your Year 1 dormitory mistress. Please come with me." She led me through spotless corridors until we reached a spacious reception room where 2 more women waited. Without hesitation, Miss Ross gestured toward a nearby doorway. "Remove your clothes, take a shower, and put on the garments waiting inside. Please don't delay. We have several new arrivals today." Still stunned by everything that had happened, I obeyed. Fresh underclothes, a plain sweatshirt, and navy jogging trousers had been neatly folded on a chair. Once dressed, I returned to the reception room. "Excellent," Miss Ross said with an approving nod. "Miss Fleming will take you to your room. You'll meet your roommate there." Miss Fleming guided me upstairs while more nervous recruits arrived below, each accompanied by another officer. She stopped outside a bedroom and opened the door. Inside sat another boy about my age. "David," she announced. "This is Daniel. Daniel, this is your roommate." The introductions ended there. That first night, I slept surprisingly well. When morning arrived, the unfamiliar surroundings took a few moments to register. David and I followed the routine exactly as instructed. We showered, dressed, and ate the breakfast delivered to our room before Miss Fleming escorted us to the principal's office. The office was large and quiet. We were instructed to kneel before an enormous oak desk. Principal Edwards stood at the window with her hands clasped behind her back. Only after we had settled into position did she turn to face us. "Good morning, boys." "Good morning, Madam Principal," we answered together. "Very good." Her expression remained calm but commanding. "From today onward, you will always address me as Madam Principal. Whenever I enter a room, you will immediately kneel and greet me in that manner. Is that understood?" "Yes, Madam Principal." She nodded. "You may be uncertain why you've been brought here. Allow me to reassure you. Being selected to serve the sisterhood is a great privilege. Few receive this opportunity." She paused before continuing. "This academy will be your home for the next 3 years. During that time, you will learn discipline, obedience, and every skill required of those who dedicate their lives to service. She looked back toward the window. You may have heard unpleasant stories from people outside our organization. Ignore them. Such people neither understand nor appreciate our purpose. Turning once more to face us, she spoke with quiet certainty. If you apply yourselves, obey every instruction, and embrace your training, you will graduate with honor and begin a meaningful life. Her gaze lingered on each of us. The past is behind you now. Your future begins here. Yes, Madam Principal. I'm pleased to hear it. She pressed a button on her desk. Miss Fleming, please take our new novices to the salon. The academy salon looked nothing like the barbershops I'd known growing up. Everything about it was immaculate. Soft pink walls contrasted with polished silver furniture, while bright white trim reflected the morning sunlight. 4 styling stations stood neatly arranged opposite large mirrors, with matching wash basins nearby. Colorful nylon capes and glossy PVC coverings hung neatly behind the reception desk. A smiling woman in a white stylist's coat greeted us. The blue crest of the sisterhood was embroidered above her breast pocket, beside a comb and a pair of scissors. Welcome, she said warmly. I'm Miss Rice, head stylist. We'll begin your transformation today. Transformation? The word made me uneasy. She introduced her assistants, Miss Cameron and Miss Barnes. David accompanied Miss Cameron. I was assigned to Miss Barnes. If you'll raise your arms, Daniel, she said kindly. She slipped a long protective gown over my shoulders before fastening it securely behind my neck. The garment reached almost to my ankles. After gently examining my hair with experienced fingers, she smiled. You've lovely thick hair, she observed. It should take the perm beautifully. Perm? Surely I'd misunderstood. Without waiting for a reply, she covered the gown with a large pink waterproof cape that enveloped both me and the chair. The shampoo that followed was surprisingly relaxing. Warm water flowed through my hair while Miss Barnes carefully washed and combed it. Afterwards, she led me back to a styling chair where the trimming began. Small locks drifted silently into my lap. Despite my anxiety, I found myself relaxing. Then came the curlers. Working patiently, she wrapped section after section of my hair around colorful rollers until my entire head was covered. A cotton was tucked around my hairline before the waving lotion soaked each curler. Looking sideways, I saw David in exactly the same condition. The sight almost made me laugh. Instead, we simply exchanged uncertain smiles. A pink plastic cap completed the arrangement. There we are, Miss Barnes said cheerfully. Beauty requires patience. For the next 20 minutes, I sat quietly beneath the warmth of the processing cap, sipping coffee and absent-mindedly reading a copy of Sisterhood magazine. When the timer sounded, Miss Barnes tested one curl. 5 more minutes. Soon afterwards, I returned to the wash basin, where every trace of lotion was carefully rinsed away before each curler was gently removed. My reflection revealed soft waves instead of the tight curls I'd feared. Miss Rice took over for the finishing touches. With practiced movements, she dried and shaped my new hairstyle until it framed my face with neat, controlled volume. She stepped back with a satisfied smile. There, she said. Very smart. I studied the mirror. It certainly looked different. Softer. Neater. More carefully controlled than anything I'd worn before. Yet something deeper had changed as well. The hairstyle wasn't simply about appearance. It marked the beginning of our new identity. Every novice received the same treatment. Uniformity. Discipline. Belonging. It was the first visible reminder that our old lives had ended. Our new ones had begun. Once our styling was complete, David and I were escorted to another room lined with changing cubicles. Fresh uniforms awaited us inside. Another step in our transformation was about to begin. The second phase of our induction began almost immediately. Inside the changing cubicle, a neatly folded uniform waited on a wooden bench. Every item had been arranged with military precision, as though someone had measured the exact distance between each piece. Hurry along, Miss Fleming called from outside. Miss Ross doesn't appreciate being kept waiting. I quickly removed my old clothes, folding them without really thinking. They represented the last remnants of the life I had known, and somehow I sensed I would never wear them again. The academy uniform was unlike anything I had owned before. It consisted of pale underclothes, a neatly pressed tunic with narrow striped fabric, polished shoes, and a matching belt bearing the crest of the sisterhood. Pulling it on felt strangely symbolic. Each button I fastened seemed to close another door behind me. When I finally looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the nervous boy staring back. It wasn't that I looked like someone else. I looked like everyone else. Individuality had been replaced by uniformity. That, I would later learn, was entirely the point. Our appearance was not considered complete until we returned to the salon. Miss Rice inspected each of us with meticulous attention. She tidied our newly cut hair, adjusted collars, brushed lint from our sleeves, and ensured every recruit matched the academy's exact standards. No shortcuts, she reminded us. Discipline begins with presentation. Once she was satisfied, David and I were escorted to Miss Ross's office. We knelt before her desk and read aloud from a printed induction card. The words marked the official beginning of our novitiate. We pledged loyalty to the sisterhood, accepted our identification numbers, and acknowledged that our previous lives were now behind us. After signing the academy register, Miss Ross welcomed us as first-year novices. From today onward, she said, your success depends on your discipline, your conduct, and your willingness to learn. Back in our room, 2 large suitcases rested neatly on our beds. Inside, we found everything we would need for academy life. Multiple uniforms for different seasons, formal clothing, sports attire, rainwear, footwear, toiletries, stationery, and carefully labeled storage compartments. Every item had its place. By the end of the afternoon, our wardrobes looked identical. It was another reminder that life at the academy valued order above individuality. The first 2 weeks were known as the induction period. The 24 recruits remained separated from the older students while we learned academy customs, schedules, and expectations. Only 23 completed the program. 1 recruit found the transition impossible and returned home before the induction ended. The instructors spoke little about it, simply reminding us that academy life demanded commitment. Our lessons during those weeks focused less on academics than on understanding the institution itself. History, etiquette, discipline, organization, household management, and the traditions of the sisterhood formed the foundation of our education. Everything followed a carefully planned routine. The bell woke us at dawn. Mornings were spent preparing our uniforms before breakfast. Academic classes filled the day, interrupted only by meals and the daily assembly in the Great Hall, where the principal addressed the student body. Evenings were devoted to study, room inspections, and preparation for the following day. Life settled into a rhythm so precise that before long, I no longer needed a clock to know the time. The academy expected excellence in every detail. Uniforms had to remain immaculate, rooms perfectly organized, and manners beyond reproach. Looking back now, I realize the purpose was never simply education. It was transformation. Slowly, almost without noticing, the frightened boy who had arrived through the academy gates began to disappear, replaced by someone shaped entirely by routine, discipline, and unquestioning obedience. The vigil never truly ended. When one novice completed a watch, another silently took their place. The exchange was simple and ritualized, ensuring that the chamber was never left unattended. Day and night, throughout the year, someone was always present, standing witness to the institution's most sacred tradition. During our first week, every recruit received a handbook entitled Foundations of Service. It was presented as the Academy's most important text, outlining its history, customs, and philosophy. We were expected to study it daily until its lessons became second nature. According to its founder, Madame Veronique de Silk, society could only achieve lasting stability through unwavering discipline, absolute order, and unquestioning loyalty to the sisterhood. The academy existed to shape young recruits into dependable servants of that ideal, replacing individual ambition with collective purpose. Our instructors treated the handbook less like a textbook and more like scripture. Every chapter reinforced the same message. Obedience was strength, humility was virtue, and service, was the highest calling. Life at the academy reflected those principles in every detail. Uniforms had to be immaculate. Dormitories were inspected without warning. Every movement followed a schedule, and every ceremony reinforced our place within the institution. Even our free time was carefully supervised. A month after arriving, a small group of us was permitted to leave the grounds for the first time under staff supervision. The outing was ordinary, a visit into town to purchase personal supplies, but for us it felt monumental. Walking through crowded streets in academy uniform drew curious stares. Some people watched in silence, while others whispered or laughed as we passed. Our instructors had warned us to expect ridicule and reminded us that our conduct reflected the academy itself. "Never answer mockery with anger," Miss Ross had said before we departed. "Discipline is measured by how you behave when others test it." I repeated those words to myself until the journey was over. Not every lesson came from the classroom. One afternoon, after breaking academy rules by wandering beyond an approved area, another novice and I were disciplined. We spent 3 days in isolation, assigned repetitive cleaning duties, and removed from normal academy life. The punishment was deliberately monotonous rather than harsh. Silence, routine, and separation gave us plenty of time to reflect on our decisions. By the end of the 3rd day, I understood exactly why the academy valued obedience above independence. As the years passed, the original intake gradually grew smaller. Some recruits chose to leave, unable to adapt to the relentless structure. Those who remained formed close friendships, united by shared routines and common challenges. Graduation eventually arrived. Months of preparation transformed the Great Hall into an impressive ceremonial venue. Every detail had been rehearsed repeatedly, from the order of the procession to the final presentation of certificates. When my name was called, I walked onto the stage with the rest of my class. Looking out across the audience, I realized how different I had become from the frightened child who had first entered the academy gates. Whether that transformation was liberation or surrender remained a question I would spend many years trying to answer. As the ceremony concluded, each graduate met the mentor to whom they had been assigned for the next stage of life. Goodbyes were brief but heartfelt, as we understood that our paths might never cross again. Standing at the academy entrance for the last time, I glanced back at the building that had shaped every part of my adolescence. Whatever lay beyond those gates, there would be no returning to the person I had once been.